The most common thing you'll need to do when you're creating any sort of application is listen out for events. And this is where we're going to discover how vPlay makes it pretty easy for us to listen to those events and listeners when someone is typing something into our input text. All of the action that we're interested in is going to happen, of course, inside our app text field because our user is doing something. Let me just tab this down a couple spaces to get it to the middle. And so inside of here, we're going to listen out for changes on this. And vPlay has abstracted all of that hard work away from it. We don't have to do it, basically. All we have to do is listen to something called onTextChanged. So every time the text changes from its previous state, then this will be fired, this will be called. What we're going to do is we're going to do something called show recent searches. Okay, so this is going to show the previous searches that we've recently run. Now, obviously, we don't have this function yet, so all we need to do, actually, is add this particular function. So inside of here, actually not inside of here, so let's just get rid of that. We want to put our functions inside of the page itself, so all of the elements can access those functions. So I'm going to drop these down at the bottom of the page, and let's have a function here called, as you might guess, show recent searches. And because it's a function, open and close your brackets, open and close your curly braces. So if you go ahead and save that, and then run it in the live view, we should have no issues when we change that search text. And we'll know we have issues because we'll see an error over here in the desktop client. So let's go to search, and we have no errors. So here we go, we've got London, no errors. Okay, so how do we know that function is firing apart from having to trust me? Well, we can do something called debugging. Console.debug, and we can send ourselves a message showing recent searches. And if we save that, go back to our live server. You don't need to refresh it. I'm just doing it so I don't have to Alt-Tab across everything. It does it automatically. So if I go to the search and I type L, notice that it debugs on every change of the letters, including when I backspace or just put a space in. So that's fired every change. So be careful with that logic. You don't want to run something that's too expensive when text has changed. Okay, so that's basically how we subscribe to an event that happens in our app text field on text changed. And this is the basic method of subscribing across most of the graphical elements in QML. We call a function, which of course we define. Now, what do we need? Well, we need to define when our editing has finished. So when the user hits search on their keyboard bar or go or whatever the equivalent is, as all app keyboards come with these days. And this is called by listening to on editing finished. Right? So when the editing is finished, we want to search for something. Now, if we search for something, we actually want to make sure that we're on the search page currently. And that'll become clear as we progress through this course. So the way we check what page we're on, we go if navigation stack, and you'll recall this navigation stack comes from our property cross main page, but we don't have to specifically call it nav stack because every page only has one navigation stack. By definition, it can't have more than one, otherwise it doesn't know where it is. So this just gets the nav stack. So if the nav stack current page is equals, that's 3 equals, JavaScript this is equal to the search page. So it's equal in, this is really going to test my memory here. It's equal in type. So the type is search page. It's equal in the regular sense of the word to the search page object and something else I can't remember. Anyway, perhaps if you know, you can comment under this. So if all of this is true, then we can open and close our curly braces and we can run something. We can run a search because a search is going to go out and look for objects on the internet, which is quite expensive to do. So we always want to make sure that we're on the current page, which is the search page, when we do that. Okay, so that's going to go off and search. And if you want the shorthand, obviously, for if, it's JavaScript, we can get rid of the curly brace as long as there is only one line in the function that we want to call. Right, so if we save that, and then we go to our live server again, I'll just show you a little something. I'm not sure it's going to work because I'm just doing this off the cuff. But if we type something, we get our showing recent searches. If I press enter on my keyboard, we are trying to call the search. And you'll notice it tells us precisely that search is not defined. And that's obviously because we haven't defined it. So let's have a function called search, open and close our curly braces. Okay, so when we search for stuff, or when we show recent searches, we can add a little bit of nicety here. So let's go to our console debug. Recall that our search input has an ID, so we can identify that. We can say, hey, go to the search input box and tell me what the current text is. We'll leave the search function free for now because we're going to deal with that later on. But I'm just showing you how we access other elements and their properties inside of functions. So if we save that, and I Alt-Tab all the way over here, we go to search, we'll need to see our server, Manchester. There we go. So that's how we access various properties of various objects inside of there. And it's your basic introduction to events and listeners. Now, these are very, very basic events and listeners, but important nonetheless because vplay makes it very, very easy to implement these things. It even allows you to listen to properties themselves when they change. Now, that is very, very useful. And you'll discover that as you make more and more applications. And having that functionality will save you a lot of time.